I mentioned the story of a blogger, right? Hamza Kashgari, Saudi guy. I mean, I'm going to say kid. I mean, he looks, 23 years old. He's 23 years old. And he sent out a couple of tweets that I thought were fairly benign and innocuous, but there are now people calling for him to be executed. Oh, yeah. Creeping Sharia? You betcha. Congressman Fred Grandy, of course, is a regular contributor to this program every Wednesday morning at this time, as a matter of fact, and he's been all over this story. Fred, good morning.
Good morning, Jeff.
You are not near your Twitter, are you?
No, actually, I steer clear of Twitter for the reasons that you just began to explain. And let me just say, this Hamza Kashgari story is a chilling is a chilling kind of postscript to the Istanbul process story that I did last week. Because,
right,
as you know, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation is attempting to legitimize Sharia blasphemy laws around the world with the aid and support of the Secretary of State right now as they try to figure out how to reconcile the differences between our Constitution and their blasphemy laws, which have just, as you pointed out, captured this kid, Hamza Kashgari, who, from what I can say, was questioning his faith on Twitter and then felt the need that he probably needed to flee to New Zealand. He was arrested in Malaysia. But here's the interesting thing. He was arrested because Saudi Arabia, his country of origin, sent out what they call a red notice. A red notice is an alert to Interpol, the International Criminal Organization, to apprehend an individual. And that's exactly what happened to Hamza Kashgari. Now, what is this if not a Sharia police force? And I say that because Interpol has traditionally been an organization, and I'm quoting now from a source that has always referred to Interpol as an international coordination mechanism for national police authorities that is supposed to, and I emphasize supposed to, quote, respect human rights and free speech and steer clear of religious or political cases. Now, what is this if not a religious case? But what's going to happen to Hamza Kashgari, as you pointed out, is he's going to return to Saudi Arabia, where no less than about 30,000 people have called for the removal of his head, which, of course, is a legitimate form of execution in that country.
Right.
Now, why should we be so involved in this? This could never happen here. Well, yes and no. And here's the connection that I wanted to bring out. In December of 2009, President Obama issued Executive Order 13524, which essentially extended to Interpol the privileges of a foreign diplomatic mission, which could mean that as an international police force, it would be immune from the restraints of American law. This is 2 years ago. Now, supposing Hamza Kashgari had tried to flee to the United States, Saudi Arabia had put out a red notice. Are we now saying that Interpol could have apprehended him at JFK or Logan and hauled him back to Saudi Arabia? They did in Malaysia. We don't know that. But the latitude the president has just extended to Interpol suggests that that could at least be contested. So it appears that the Istanbul process now has its own international police force to enforce Sharia law. Now, if that doesn't chill you to the bone, I don't know what does.
Wow.
One more postscript here before we engage in light radio repartee.
Yes.
One of the places you will not ever find this story, Jeff, is Fox News. Why? Well, it might be that Prince Alawid bin Talal owns 7% of that network and also 4% of Twitter. Wink, wink. Nod, nod.
Wow.
So, I find as these stories begin to collide with one another, there is a pattern of connecting the dots, which happily you're allowing me to do on the air. But most of this is so far under the radar that with the exception of the people that loyally listen to your show, we will probably never know. But this is creeping Sharia in the most insidious form that I have seen to date.
Let me ask you about Kashgari again. Now, is he actually returning to Saudi Arabia?
That's my understanding, that he is essentially being sent back to Kashgari, where he will stand trial. And of course, this is the crime of apostasy, which is a capital offense. in a Sharia state, such as Saudi Arabia.
Right.
And again, understand that what the Organization of Islamic Cooperation is trying to do is take the laws of Saudi Arabia and Pakistan and those countries such as Somalia and Sudan where Sharia prevails and insinuate them into Western civilization, which is all part of the extension of the caliphate. But they now have, it appears, the complicity of Interpol, which, as I always thought, was to some degree an impartial international police force that was merely designed to apprehend criminals, not kids who were questioning their faith on an electronic device.
Now, is there any mechanism inside of Interpol? I mean, you've clearly looked into it a lot more than most of us have. Is there an opportunity for another government somewhere, another official somewhere to throw a flag and say, wait a minute, that's not what we're supposed to be about?
I don't know if there is an official way to do that. Unofficially, the United States and most Western nations, Great Britain, take your pick, could stand up and say, what, are you kidding me? This is not what Interpol is in business to do. Stand down immediately and let this kid go to New Zealand, where he was trying to find asylum, essentially.
Right.
But he was arrested in Malaysia, and of course the Malaysians saying, well, we got nothing to do with this, of course. But he was essentially ratted out in a Muslim country. So I don't know, Jeff. This story is to some degree on the back pages of most of our international journalism, but I find this to be enormously chilling right now and something that we need to pay very close attention to, particularly in light of Obama's executive order, which most of us didn't even know about.
Right. And what about the money? I know we're just about out of time, but Fred, you were one of the first ones to shed some light on this whole Arab Spring. Now we hear that the president has budgeted just shy of $1 trillion in aid for the Arab Springers.
Well, actually, it's $800 million in Mideast development money over and above the $1.5 billion he still wants to give to Egypt, even though they're holding Americans hostage. And this is after the Muslim Brotherhood has publicly announced that if the U.S. denies this aid, they'll break the Camp David Accords. So this is extortion, and we apparently are willing to pay the price. Now, if Congress doesn't stand up and say, as happily they have done recently, but need to continue to do, Mr. President, you ain't getting one penny for these guys, then I really think we have bowed down to a Middle Eastern foreign power in a way that doesn't even resemble Obama's deep bow to the Saudi prince a couple of years ago.
Incredible. Fred, I appreciate you being here as always, my friend. That is Congressman Fred Grandy, the story of a 23-year-old kid. I mean, he's a kid, for God's sakes. He's a kid. He sends out a tweet and says, basically, I've been a Muslim my whole life, and now I'm wondering if it's exactly what I thought it should be. It's that benign. And he's now going to stand trial in Saudi Arabia with the possibility of being executed for saying such stuff.